Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're taking a deep dive into dream interpretation. We're going to be focusing on this idea that dreams, they aren't just random images, just kind of flitting through our minds while we sleep. What if they're like metaphorical messages, messages from our unconscious, full of all
Mm.
sorts of insights about ourselves?
Yeah, that's a fascinating concept. I mean, think about it. If we can learn to understand the metaphors in our dreams, it's like unlocking a secret code, a code to our deepest selves.
Oh, I like that. So it's not just about remembering what happened in the dream, but figuring out what it means. So like
Exactly.
a dream about flying, maybe it's not about literally flying right,
Yeah.
but about feeling free or powerful in some area of your life.
That's a great example. And what these metaphors can offer us is really unique. I mean, they offer a window into not just our desires, but our emotions, fears, and even our overall well being.
And it's so interesting to me. Even if we forget like the specific details of a dream, we almost always remember how it made us feel.
Right.
Have you ever woken up from a dream and you just felt like super anxious
Absolutely.
or like incredibly joyful, even if you couldn't remember exactly what happened?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. And those feelings, they linger, right?
They do. And those lingering feelings, they're actually crucial to understanding the dream, almost like the energy source that drives the creation of the metaphorical imagery.
It's like our unconscious mind is a poet,
Ooh, I like that.
speaking to us in riddles and using emotions as its ink.
Hmm. That's a great analogy. It really highlights how our unconscious uses that symbolic language to communicate with us. But what happens when we try to ignore or even repress certain feelings or desires?
Hmm. Do they just go away? Or does ignoring them make them even like louder in our dreams?
That's such a good question.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what our sources suggest is that repressing emotions, it doesn't make them disappear. Instead, it pushes them into the unconscious, where they
Yeah.
can manifest in unexpected ways and potentially unhelpful ways.
So even if we try to bury a feeling like anger or sadness, it might just pop up somewhere else, maybe disguised as a recurring dream symbol,
Hmm.
or even affecting our waking behavior.
Precisely. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You might be able to keep it submerged for a while, but eventually it's going to pop back up.
Splashing everyone around you.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing that trying to repress something like sexual energy, that
Mm.
vital life force, can be especially counterproductive if we're not, actively working on self-healing.
Exactly. Repressing any powerful emotion, including sexual energy, can actually create more internal conflict and hinder personal growth. It's about finding healthy and constructive ways to acknowledge and integrate these energies rather than trying to shut them down completely.
So it's not about like denying or judging those deeper parts of ourselves, but understanding and accepting them.
Absolutely. And that's where dream interpretation can become such a powerful tool for self discovery.
Hmm.
By understanding the symbols and the metaphors in our dreams, we can start to peel back the layers of our ego and gain a clearer understanding of our true selves.
Okay, so if I'm getting this right by learning to decode those dream symbols, we're basically shining a light on the hidden parts of ourselves, the parts we might be, consciously or unconsciously trying to ignore.
Exactly. And once we bring those hidden parts into conscious awareness, we can start to work on resolving those inner conflicts, healing those old wounds, and ultimately becoming more whole and integrated individuals.
That makes a lot of sense. So how do we actually go about interpreting those dream symbols? Like, what if I dream about a snake, for instance? Does that always mean the same thing? Or does it depend on the person and the context?
That's a great question. And it leads us perfectly into the next stage of our deep dive. While certain symbols, they often have universal meanings, how they appear and what they represent to you personally can be very different from someone else's interpretation.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. I'm ready to put on my detective hat and start unraveling these dream mysteries. But let's take a quick pause here and come back in part two, where we'll delve deeper into the practical side of dream interpretation and learn some techniques for deciphering our own nighttime adventures. All right, so I'm ready. Dream detective hat is on, and I'm ready to start decoding these symbolic messages. But where do we even begin?
Hmm. Well, a great starting point is something called a dream journal.
Okay.
It's really as simple as it sounds. Just keep a notebook and pen by your bed, and as soon as you wake up, jot down as many details from your dreams as you can remember.
So just like creating a dream database.
Exactly. And don't worry about making sense of it right away. Just focus on capturing those raw images, the emotions, any recurring patterns that you notice.
Okay, that makes sense. But what do we do once we have all this dream data? How do we actually start interpreting those recurring symbols or themes?
Ugh. That's where things get really interesting. Remember, dream symbols, they're highly personal. What a snake represents to me might be totally different for you. It's about tapping into your own intuition and associations. Ask yourself, what does this symbol make me think of? What feelings or memories does it evoke?
So for example, if I keep dreaming about being chased, it might not literally mean someone's after me, but rather symbolize a feeling of being overwhelmed or pressured in my waking life.
That's a great example. And the more you practice this kind of symbolic thinking, the more fluent you'll become in the language of your dreams.
Okay, but what if I'm just stumped? What if I have a dream that's so bizarre or nonsensical that I just can't make heads or tails of it?
Don't get discouraged. Even the most baffling dreams, they can still offer valuable insights. Sometimes it helps to break the dream down into smaller chunks and analyze each element separately. Look for connections between the different symbols and see if any patterns emerge.
Oh, okay. So it's like solving a puzzle,
Oh.
looking for clues and piecing them together.
Exactly.
But let's not forget about those emotions we talked about earlier. How do we factor those into our interpretations?
Emotions are really the key to unlocking the true meaning of your dreams. Pay close attention to how you felt during the dream and how those feelings linger after you wake up. Those emotions are often a direct reflection of what's going on in your unconscious mind.
So if I wake up from a dream feeling anxious, it might be a sign that there's something in my waking life that's causing me stress or worry, even if I'm not consciously aware of it.
Precisely. Your dreams are like an early warning system, alerting you to issues that need to be addressed.
This is starting to sound like therapy.
Yeah,
Are you saying we can use our dreams to actually work through emotional issues?
absolutely. Dream interpretation can be a powerful tool for self-healing and personal growth. By bringing unconscious material into conscious awareness, we can start to understand the root causes of our behaviors, our patterns, our emotional responses.
Wow. So it's not just about deciphering the symbols, it's about using those insights to make positive changes in our lives.
Exactly. Dreams can offer us guidance, clarity, even solutions to problems that have been perplexing us in our waking hours.
This is incredible. But I have to admit, this whole process can feel a bit daunting. Any tips for making it more approachable?
One thing that can be helpful is to start with a simple question. What's the main message or feeling this dream is trying to convey? Don't get bogged down in trying to analyze every detail. Just focus on the big picture and see what resonates with you.
So it's like looking for the headline rather than getting lost in the fine print.
Exactly. And remember, dream interpretation, it's a journey, not a destination. Be patient with yourself, allow yourself to make mistakes, and just have fun with the process.
That's great advice. So we've talked about dream journals, emotional awareness, and symbolic thinking. Any other tools or techniques that can help us crack the code of our dreams?
One technique I find helpful is called dream amplification. It involves taking a specific element from your dream and exploring it further, whether it's through writing or drawing or even acting it out.
So if I dream about a mysterious locked door, I might try drawing that door in as much detail as possible, or imagine myself walking through that door and exploring what's on the other side.
That's the idea. By engaging with the dream imagery in a more creative and active way, you can unlock deeper layers of meaning and connect with your unconscious on a more intuitive level.
Okay, that sounds really powerful. I'm starting to see my dreams in a whole new light now. But before we wrap up this part, I have one more question. We've been talking about all the cool things we can learn from our dreams. But are there any potential downsides or risks we should be aware of when exploring our dreams?
That's an important question. While exploring our dreams can be a fantastic tool for growth and self-discovery, it's important to approach it with a healthy dose of discernment and self-awareness. Not all dreams are created equal. Some might be just processing the day's events or random neural activity. Others might be more symbolic and insightful.
So we need to trust our own judgment and not get too caught up in trying to interpret every single dream.
Exactly. It's about learning to discern which dreams feel significant and which ones you can safely let go of. And if you ever find yourself feeling overwhelmed or distressed by a particular dream, it's always a good idea to reach out to a therapist or counselor who specializes in dream work.
Okay, that's reassuring to know.
Yeah.
So the key takeaway here is to approach dream exploration with curiosity, respect, and a healthy dose of common sense.
Absolutely. And remember, the journey into the unconscious is an ongoing adventure. There's always more to discover. And the more we're willing to listen to the whispers of our dreams, the richer and more meaningful our lives can become.
All right, so we've explored how to interpret our dreams. But now I'm curious about something else. I've heard that there's a connection between dreams and creativity. Is there any truth to that?
Absolutely. What's really fascinating is that our dreams can actually act as a source of creative inspiration. Think of it this way. Our dreams, with all their like wild imagery and unexpected scenarios, they can offer us fresh perspectives and new ideas that we might not have access to in our waking lives.
Oh, so it's like our dreams are giving us a glimpse into like the inner workings of our creative minds, even when we're asleep.
Exactly. And by paying attention to the themes, the symbols, even the emotions that come up in our dreams, we can tap into this creative energy and use it to fuel our waking lives.
Okay, so I'm intrigued, but how do we actually use our dreams to boost our creativity in like practical ways? Are we just supposed to hope for a sudden burst of inspiration?
Well, there's a technique called dream incubation that can be incredibly helpful. And basically, it involves setting an intention before you go to sleep, almost like asking your unconscious mind to provide insights or inspiration related to a specific creative project or problem you're working on.
So if I'm like struggling with a song I'm writing, I could go to bed with the intention of dreaming about melodies or lyrics.
Exactly. And you might be surprised by what comes up, the fresh perspectives or even like solutions that emerge in your dreams. It's like having a secret brainstorming session with your subconscious.
That's amazing. But how do we actually remember those creative insights when we wake up?
We've talked about dream journals, but are there any other tips for catching those creative gems before they slip away?
Keeping a dream journal is definitely key. But in addition to that, it can be helpful to have like a separate notebook or even just a notes file on your phone where you jot down any creative ideas or inspirations that just pop up throughout the day, even if they're not directly related to a dream.
So it's like creating a catch-all for those creative sparks no matter where they come from.
Precisely. And as you start paying closer attention, you might be amazed at how often these like seemingly random flashes of inspiration connect back to themes or symbols that have shown up in your dreams.
This is all starting to feel like a treasure hunt for hidden creativity.
It is. And the rewards can be truly amazing. By tapping into the creative potential of our dreams, we can unlock these new levels of innovation, problem solving, and artistic expression that we might not have even known we had within us. Wow. This is all so fascinating. It's like our dreams are like this secret portal to a whole other dimension of creativity. But before we wrap up our deep dive, I have one last question. We've talked a lot about the benefits of exploring our dreams, but are there any potential downsides or risks we should be aware of?
That's an important question, and it's great that you're thinking about that. While exploring our dreams can be an incredibly powerful tool for growth and self-discovery, it's essential to approach it with a healthy dose of discernment and self-awareness.
What do you mean by that?
Well, for starters, not all dreams are created equal. Some might be simply processing the day's events, or just random neural activity. Others might be more symbolic and insightful. It's important to learn to trust your own judgment and intuition, to figure out which dreams feel significant and worth exploring further, and which ones you can probably just let go of.
So we don't have to drive ourselves crazy trying to analyze every single dream.
Exactly. And if you ever find yourself feeling overwhelmed or distressed by a particular dream, it's always a good idea to reach out to a therapist or counselor who specializes in dream work. They can provide guidance and support as you navigate those like more challenging dream experiences.
Okay, that's good to know. So the key takeaway here is to approach dream exploration with curiosity, respect, and a healthy dose of common sense.
Absolutely. And remember, this journey into the unconscious, it's an ongoing adventure. There's always more to discover. And the more we're willing to listen to the whispers of our dreams, the richer and more meaningful our lives can become.
That's beautiful. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into this amazing world of dreams. I hope you've enjoyed exploring the mysteries of the unconscious mind, the power of dream metaphors, and the incredible connection between dreams and creativity.
Remember your dreams, they're a unique and powerful reflection of your innermost self. By paying attention to their messages and exploring their symbolism, you're unlocking a world of potential within you.
So keep dreaming, keep exploring, and keep discovering that incredible power and wisdom that reside within your own mind. Until next time. Welcome in, everybody. Today, we're diving deep into Drico Flowers' Divine Fusion 101.
Woo!
We've got a pretty good spread laid out for us.
Oh, yeah.
We've got
Yeah.
notes, reflections, even like a whole study guide thing.
Nice.
All about this concept of Divine Fusion 101.
Sounds like we're really going to get into it.
Yeah. Are you ready to kind of unlock the power of vulnerability with this?
Absolutely. And you know what strikes me right off the bat is that Drico Flowers doesn't just tell us to like be vulnerable, right? He really digs into the why behind it all.
Yeah.
This isn't just about some fleeting moments of emotional openness. This is like a whole practice, a system even.
Totally. He even uses this phrase, the knowing and practice of vulnerability.
Right.
So what do you think he's getting at with that knowing part?
That's a good question.
It seems like it's more than just feeling things.
Yeah, definitely.
There's got to be some deeper level of understanding there.
Well, it seems to be about confronting what he calls the darkest aspects. We all have those parts of ourselves, those experiences, the things we tend to kind of shy away from.
Yeah.
And Flowers argues that we can't even begin to get on that path to divine fusion until we really acknowledge those aspects.
So it's like we've got to take inventory of all our emotional baggage before we can even think about unpacking it all.
Exactly.
But then he uses this analogy of like experiences being given away, like a sculptor shaping clay.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And once it's shaped, you can't get that clay back.
Right.
Like it feels kind of irreversible.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It does.
That's the whole point, though.
Okay.
Flowers is saying that these experiences, these parts of ourselves, they're not going anywhere.
Right.
We can deny them, try to bury them even,
Sure.
but they've already shaped who we are.
Oh, okay.
The real power is in acknowledging that, shaping that impact,
Okay, so we can't just like shove those darker parts of ourselves under the rug. But how does vulnerability even fit into all of this?
Well,
I mean, it seems almost counterintuitive.
yeah.
Are we usually taught to like hide our weaknesses, not embrace them?
Exactly. And that's the societal myth that Flowers really tackles head on.
Okay.
He's saying that true vulnerability requires something he calls a sacrifice of ego.
Interesting.
We gotta let go of that carefully crafted image of
Right.
who we think we should be.
So what I'm hearing is that the knowing part of Divine Fusion 101
Yeah.
involves both acknowledging those darker parts of ourselves
Right.
and being willing to let go of that idealized self-image.
Exactly.
That feels pretty intense, honestly.
It is intense,
Yeah.
and it isn't always comfortable.
Right.
But Flowers makes this really compelling case that this is where the real magic happens.
Okay.
When we stop clinging to who we think we should be,
Yeah.
that's when we can start to connect with who we truly are.
It kind of reminds me of something he mentioned about like intimate moments. And he's not just talking about being alone, right?
Right.
It's something deeper.
It is.
It's like these are the moments where our true selves are revealed, often when we least expect it.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Interesting.
He talks about how these moments are intensely personal, even private.
Right.
It's like those times when you're stripped bare emotionally,
Yeah.
whether it's through grief, joy, or even some profound realization.
Yeah.
Flowers suggests that these are actually the moments where divine fusion begins.
Okay. So we're starting to see how vulnerability plays a role here.
Definitely.
We acknowledge the good and the bad.
Yeah.
We let go of that mask that our egos created.
Mm-hmm.
And we pay attention to these intimate moments that reveal our true selves.
I like that.
But how do we actually move from the knowing
Yeah.
to the practice of vulnerability?
That's the big question.
That's where I get a little lost.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that. That's where Flowers introduces these specific techniques of Divine Fusion 101. Okay.
It's not just about passively observing, it's about actively engaging with these moments.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure.
I need something concrete here.
Yeah, I get that.
What does one of these practices actually look like?
Well, one he really emphasizes is called embracing the shadow.
Embracing the shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he argues that we all have this like shadow self,
Mm-hmm.
the parts of us we kind of deem unacceptable,
Right.
undesirable.
Yeah.
And Divine Fusion 101 encourages us to not only acknowledge those shadow aspects,
Okay.
but to actually spend time with them,
Whoa.
understand them, even integrate them.
Well, not integrate our negative traits.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of dangerous?
Wow.
What if my shadow self is like super lazy
Okay.
or prone to like bad decisions?
That's where the knowing part comes back. Flowers isn't saying we should just indulge every negative impulse we have.
Right.
It's more about understanding the root of those impulses,
Yeah. Okay.
the WHY behind them.
Often he says these shadow traits come from past hurts,
Mm.
fears, or unmet needs.
So instead of just like labeling myself as lazy,
Right.
I might explore why I'm procrastinating on certain tasks.
Exactly.
Maybe there's a fear of failure lurking underneath or something,
It could be.
or a need for more creative control.
Yeah,
That's not being met.
exactly. And once you understand that root,
Yeah.
you can start to address it in a healthier way.
Okay.
Maybe instead of beating yourself up for procrastinating,
Hmm.
you could set up a system that supports your need for that creative input.
Right.
Divine Fusion 101 is about transforming those shadow aspects,
Okay.
not just suppressing them.
That's starting to make more sense.
Good.
But I have to admit, this idea of intentionally spending time with my shadow self
Yeah,
still feels kind of intimidating.
I understand.
Are there any other practices that feel a bit more
Yeah.
well approachable?
Of course, he talks about a practice called radical transparency,
Okay.
which focuses on being more authentic in our interactions with others. It's about expressing our true feelings even when it's uncomfortable, and being willing to be seen for who we truly are.
I can see how that ties into vulnerability.
Yeah.
But isn't there a danger in being too open,
Well,
too transparent?
it's a good question.
What about protecting ourselves?
Yeah.
Setting boundaries?
That's a great point, and Flowers addresses that directly.
Okay.
He says that radical transparency isn't about oversharing or blurring boundaries.
Right.
It's about discerning when and with whom to be vulnerable.
Okay.
It's a practice, not a free-for-all, you know?
So it's like we're building a muscle.
Yeah.
We start with these small acts of transparency in safe spaces with people we trust
Exactly.
and gradually build up our capacity for vulnerability over time.
Precisely. He even suggests starting with journaling or self-reflection before
Right.
bringing it into our interpersonal relationships.
I'm starting to realize this whole divine fusion thing. It's less about like a specific set of rules and more about like a mindset shift.
I agree.
It's about approaching life with more curiosity
Right.
and acceptance towards both ourselves and others.
That's a great way to put it.
Thanks.
And that mindset shift, Flowers argues,
Yeah.
can have ripple effects throughout our lives.
Wow.
It impacts our relationships, our creativity, even our sense of purpose.
He mentions this idea of divine fusion as a path to deeper self-knowledge.
Yeah.
How does that work exactly? Is it just from being more honest with ourselves?
It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
Flowers suggests that when we embrace vulnerability, we're opening ourselves up to a wider range of experiences.
Okay.
We're no longer filtering everything through the lens of our ego or our fears.
Right.
This allows us to see things more clearly,
Yeah.
to connect with our intuition, and ultimately to gain a deeper understanding of who we are at our core.
It sounds like a pretty radical approach to personal growth.
It-
So for our listeners who are like intrigued by this idea of Divine Fusion 101, what are some practical steps they can take to start incorporating it into their lives?
Well, Flowers is a big believer in small, consistent action.
Okay.
He suggests starting with a practice he calls the daily examine.
Okay.
It's a simple but powerful technique
Yeah.
where you take a few minutes each day to reflect on your experiences,
Okay.
both positive and negative.
So instead of just letting the day wash over me,
Right.
I intentionally pause
Yeah.
and pay attention to what I'm feeling, what I'm
Yeah.
learning,
Yeah.
even what I'm struggling with.
Exactly. And then you apply the principles of divine fusion to those reflections.
Yeah.
You know, are you resisting any shadow aspects? Are there opportunities for radical transparency in your relationships?
Right.
It's about bringing those concepts into your everyday life.
This has been incredibly insightful.
Good. I'm glad.
I feel like I'm starting to grasp the essence of Divine Fusion 101.
Awesome.
It's not a quick fix.
You
It's a journey of self-discovery through vulnerability.
Oh, said.
So it feels like we've just scratched the surface here.
Yeah. We have.
There's so much depth to this Divine Fusion 101.
Definitely.
If I had to sum it up,
Yeah.
would it be fair to say that it's about like transforming what we normally see as weaknesses into strengths?
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
Flowers challenges us to see those so-called negative aspects as opportunities for growth,
Okay.
not things to be ashamed of or suppressed.
Right.
He even uses the phrase alchemizing the shadow, which I really like.
I like that too.
Yeah.
It's like we're turning lead into gold.
Exactly.
But I'm curious, what does Flowers say about the benefits of practicing Divine Fusion 101?
Wow.
Does he promise us like enlightenment or $1 million or what?
He's actually pretty grounded in his approach. He talks about benefits like deeper self-awareness, more authentic relationships,
Right.
increased creativity. But he also acknowledges that this is an ongoing practice,
Yeah.
not a destination.
Well, I
It's
know
about
that.
the journey of self-discovery, not just the end goal.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not about achieving some perfect state of divine fusion.
Right.
It's about constantly engaging with this process of knowing and practicing vulnerability.
Exactly.
But I gotta ask, is there a downside?
Mm.
What if this whole vulnerability thing backfires on us?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
And Flowers doesn't shy away from it.
Oh.
He talks about the importance of discernment, choosing wisely when and with whom to be vulnerable.
Okay.
He also emphasizes the need for self-care and boundaries throughout the process.
Right.
It's not about becoming a doormat or oversharing with everyone.
So it's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between openness and self-protection.
Absolutely.
We're not just throwing caution to the wind.
Nope.
We're learning to navigate vulnerability with wisdom and intention.
Exactly. And that, I think, is where the true power of Divine Fusion 101 lies. It's not just about being vulnerable. It's about being vulnerable skillfully, consciously, and in a way that empowers us to live more authentically.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
It has been.
I feel like we've uncovered some truly valuable insights from Drico Flowers' work.
Me too.
So if our listeners are feeling inspired
Yeah.
to explore Divine Fusion 101 further, where would you suggest they start?
Well, Flowers actually offers a free introductory course on his website.
Oh, wow.
It's a great way to get a taste of his teachings
Okay.
and start experimenting with some of the practices we've talked about today.
Awesome. We'll make sure to include a link to that in the show notes.
Perfect.
And for those who are ready to just dive in head first,
Yeah,
he also has a book called, you guessed it, Divine Fusion 101.
of course.
It's a comprehensive guide to his philosophy and practices.
It is.
I highly recommend it to anyone who's ready to embark on this journey of self-discovery through
Absolutely.
vulnerability.
It's a good one.
Thank you so much for guiding us through this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure.
Your insights have been so helpful in unpacking this complex and powerful concept.
I'm glad to hear that.
And to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to check out Drico Flowers' work
Yes.
and to see how Divine Fusion 101 can transform your life.
It's really good stuff.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.
Right, so get ready. Today we are going deep, really deep into some, how should I put this, unconventional ideas about relationships with Drico Flowers' Divine Fusion 101.
Rico Flower?
Divine Fusion 101, yeah.
Okay.
You sent over a ton of, well, not a ton, but like a really interesting collection of notes and study guides and even some of Drico's articles.
Yeah.
And this is, let me tell you, not your typical relationship advice. It goes way deeper than that, you know?
Absolutely.
It's about like self-discovery, purpose, and this idea of tapping into the root of our being
Yeah.
through intimacy and connection.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really struck me about all this material was how it takes this completely different approach.
Yeah.
Like, we're not just talking about, like, communication skills or like how to, have better sex.
Yeah.
It's about using sex and relationships as this path to like deeper self-knowledge,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, it's a fascinating perspective.
Yeah.
I've never really thought about it that way.
It's so true. And one thing that really jumped out at me like right away was this idea that sex can be like a mirror, like reflecting back our deepest desires and those unmet needs that maybe we're not even aware of.
Yeah.
Like how often do we, actually think about intimacy in those terms?
Right.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you really stop and think about it.
Exactly.
What is this experience actually showing us about ourselves?
Yeah. And Drico even talks about those sentiments expressed through sex.
Okay.
And how those can reveal like so much about, our inner world, our subconscious patterns even,
Okay.
and even, the dynamics that are playing out in our relationships.
It's huge.
It is.
So it's not just about like the physical pleasure.
Right.
Like it's about gaining a deeper understanding of ourselves through these intimate experiences, like actually learning and growing from them.
Exactly.
That's pretty
There's a great quote from one of the study guides.
okay, yeah.
It says, the vulnerability and intimacy of sex can bring subconscious thoughts and feelings to the surface, offering valuable insights into our true selves.
Oh, wow.
It's powerful stuff.
That's powerful, yeah.
It's about paying attention to what emerges during those moments of connection,
Okay.
both, within ourselves, but also in that dynamic with our partner.
I like that, the dynamic.
Yeah.
Because it is a dance, right?
It is.
It's two people coming together and
Absolutely. Creating something.
creating something new. Yeah. So we've been talking about how this relates to the individual, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Drico's work doesn't stop at the individual level.
No, it doesn't.
There's a whole other layer here about how all this connects to the health of our relationships, right?
Yeah.
Like how these experiences can actually reflect the state of our partnerships.
Yeah, the material even goes so far as to say that, like, difficulties in the bedroom, like, if things aren't.
If things aren't flowing,
Yeah.
if things feel off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That could be a sign of deeper issues.
Oh, interesting.
Like maybe there are communication problems or unresolved conflicts that are.
They're coming out in a different way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like, the bedroom becomes this space where all of that comes to the surface.
So it's not just about what's happening in the bedroom itself.
Right.
It's a reflection of the whole dynamic.
It's the whole relationship. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, and it makes me wonder, like, if things feel, off
Mm-hmm.
or disconnected in the bedroom, maybe that's a sign
Yeah,
that we need to look beyond the surface
absolutely.
and really address maybe some other areas of the relationship that need some attention.
Exactly. It's about asking ourselves, like, what are our experiences actually telling us?
Yeah.
Like, what are they reflecting back to us about the overall dynamics of our relationships?
Of how we relate to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are there patterns of frustration, disconnection, unmet needs
Right.
that might be mirroring, issues that are present in other areas of our lives together?
Wow. That's a lot to think about.
It is.
It is.
But it's powerful stuff.
Yeah, and there's more, right? There's more.
Yeah.
Because Drico doesn't just leave it at, it's a reflection.
Right.
He also talks about how sex can actually contribute to a relationship's evolution.
Yes.
So what is that all about?
Well, Drico talks about how when we share our desires and our vulnerabilities during sex, it can really foster empathy
Okay,
and a deeper appreciation for our partner's perspective.
that makes sense.
It's about creating a space for true intimacy, where we can truly be seen and heard.
He's seen and heard.
And that can lead to stronger communication and understanding
Like,
in all areas of the relationship, not just the bedroom.
it makes total sense. Because when you think about it,
Mm-hmm.
the level of honesty and vulnerability that's required for really fulfilling intimacy,
Right.
it can naturally spill over into other areas of our lives together.
Absolutely.
It's like we're building this deeper level of trust
Yeah.
and connection that goes way beyond the bedroom
Right.
and strengthens, the whole foundation of the entire relationship.
The whole foundation. Yeah.
This is powerful stuff, and now we need to talk about this concept of root energy,
Okay.
which keeps popping up in these materials. Right?
Yes. It's a key concept in Divine Fusion 101.
It seems central to all of this.
It is, yeah.
So, help me understand this.
Okay.
Because, Drico describes root energy as this foundational force in our lives
Mm-hmm.
and says that it's like the driving force behind attraction and even, the root of our existence.
Yeah. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah. And here's where it gets really interesting for me, because it's not just about like physical desire, right?
Mhm.
It's this deeper, almost primal energy that connects us to our like core being
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even to something bigger than ourselves. I don't know, it's pretty mind-blowing.
It is, and it's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because Divine Fusion 101 views sexual energy not just as physical desire,
Right.
but as this like deep-seated energy that connects us to our core.
Mhm.
And even to the universe itself.
Wow, okay.
It's like this wellspring of creativity and vitality and purpose,
Okay.
and it's all there within us.
So it's not something to, be ashamed of or suppress or hide away.
Right.
It's something to understand and
Yeah.
cultivate
Exactly.
and harness for, our own personal growth and deeper connection with ourselves and with others.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the power
Yeah.
and potential of this energy, and
Yeah.
and it's something we all possess.
We all have it.
Yeah. So how can we learn to like work with it consciously?
I love that. Okay, so now I have to ask about this one concept that really jumped out at me
Okay.
from the materials.
Yeah.
And that's the idea that sex can reveal our purpose in life.
Oh yeah.
It's a pretty bold statement.
It is. It is.
So is Drico like really saying that we can find our life's calling in the bedroom?
Well, not literally.
Okay.
It's not like you're going to have some big epiphany.
Yeah, like a light bulb moment.
Yeah, and suddenly, your whole destiny is revealed.
Right, right.
But I think what Drinko's getting at is that sex,
Okay.
when it's approached with this complete self-awareness
Okay.
and this acknowledgement of ourselves and our partners,
Mhm.
can be this incredible catalyst for introspection
I see.
and understanding our deepest motivations.
So it's not about getting the answer in that moment,
Right.
but it's about using that experience as a springboard.
Exactly.
Yeah, for deeper self-reflection.
Yeah, like think of it this way.
Okay.
Sex can drop us into the state of heightened awareness, vulnerability, and connection.
Okay.
And from that space, we might find that insights about our desires, our passions, our purpose
Yeah.
start to emerge.
It's like it opens a door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's about asking ourselves those big questions,
That's a
right?
question.
Like what truly matters to us?
Yeah.
What drives us?
What are we here for?
Exactly. What brings us joy?
Yeah.
And then seeing if those insights that we gain during those intimate moments
Right.
can shed some light on those areas.
Wow, this is all incredibly thought-provoking,
Is.
and I'm sure our listener has a lot to ponder already.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But before we go any further, we need to address this idea of acknowledgement
Yeah. Yeah.
that Driko emphasizes so much, like throughout all these materials.
It is a central theme.
It does seem like it's kind of at the core of all of this.
It is.
So what exactly does that mean in the context of Divine Fusion 101?
Well, Driko talks about the importance of acknowledging everything
Okay.
about ourselves and our partners.
Varying intimacy.
Okay, so it's a level of like radical honesty
Yeah.
with
yeah.
ourselves and with the other person.
Exactly. And it's about being fully present,
Okay.
paying attention to our thoughts and feelings,
Mm-hmm.
and being open to what we discover both within ourselves,
Right.
but also in that dynamic between us.
Yeah, and it sounds like this level of awareness and honesty requires a certain level of vulnerability,
It does.
right? Like
Okay.
it can be pretty challenging to truly be seen,
Mm-hmm.
especially in those intimate moments.
It is. It's not always easy to be that open and present,
Right.
but the materials suggest that by embracing that vulnerability,
Okay.
we can unlock deeper levels of self-discovery.
And connection.
And that raises another question for me.
Okay.
Like, how many of us are truly present and aware
That's a good question.
during those intimate moments, right?
Yeah.
Are we just kind of going through the motions,
Mm-hmm.
or are we really paying attention to what's happening on a deeper level?
Yeah. That's a powerful question for all of us to consider.
It is. And I think we've covered a lot of ground already,
We have.
and there's still so much more to unpack.
Yeah.
So let's take a moment to digest all of this
Okay.
before we dive back into Driko's fascinating world of Divine Fusion 101.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Divine Fusion 101.
We've been exploring some really profound ideas about how sex and relationships can be these pathways to self-discovery, and deeper connection.
Absolutely. And before the break, you brought up this really important question about, how many of us are truly present and aware
Yeah.
during those intimate moments.
It's so easy, right, to get caught up in the physical sensations
Mm-hmm.
or even like the emotional aspects of intimacy.
Yeah.
But what Driko seems to be suggesting is that there's a whole other level
Yeah.
of awareness that we can tap into.
Yeah, like moving beyond just going through the motions.
Right.
And approaching sex as this opportunity for exploration, both of ourselves and the dynamics that we share with our partners.
I like that. Yeah, like an active exploration.
Yes.
Not just, okay, here we go again.
Exactly.
It's more than that.
Yeah, this is...
So how do we start cultivating that level of awareness and intentionality?
Right.
Like, what are some, practical steps we can take?
Well, there are several key principles that Driko highlights in the work.
Okay.
And one that really stands out to me is this concept of magnetism.
Okay. Yeah, I remember seeing that term in the study guide. Something about relationships, like being drawn together by this underlying energy that's rooted in, you guessed it, root energy.
Exactly. And Divine Fusion 101 suggests that the strength of that root energy within each individual and within the relationship itself directly influences that level of magnetism
Interesting.
or attraction between partners.
It makes me think about those couples that you see them and they just have this undeniable spark.
Yes.
Like they're magnetically drawn to each other. Is
Yeah.
that what we're talking about here?
It could be. It's like
Right.
there's this invisible force, this
Yeah.
energy that connects them on this deeper level and keeps them in each other's orbit.
So how do we cultivate that kind of magnetism in our own relationships?
Right.
Does Drico offer any tips?
Well, there aren't, any quick fixes or magic formulas.
Right.
But Divine Fusion 101 emphasizes the importance of self-awareness and self-love as being foundational to building these healthy and magnetic relationships.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
If we don't have a strong connection with ourselves, how can we expect to authentically connect with someone else?
Exactly. Drico even suggests that nurturing our own root energy is really essential.
Okay, so what does that look like practically?
Well, it means taking care of our physical,
Okay.
emotional, and spiritual well-being.
So things like eating well,
Yeah,
exercising, managing stress,
absolutely.
engaging in activities that bring us joy.
Yes, all of those.
That all contributes.
Yes, all of those practices
Yeah.
contribute to our overall vitality,
Right.
which, according to Divine Fusion 101, strengthens our root energy.
And when we feel good about ourselves, we radiate a different kind of energy.
We do.
And we're more likely
Yeah.
to attract those healthy and fulfilling relationships.
Exactly.
It's like we become a magnet for the kind of connection that we desire.
Yeah, that's the idea, but it's important to remember that it's not just about attracting any partner.
Okay.
It's about attracting the right kind of relationship.
I love that distinction.
Yeah.
It's not just about, finding someone to be with. It's about creating a partnership that truly supports our growth and evolution.
Exactly, and it requires us to be intentional about it.
Okay.
We need to get clear about what we want
Yeah.
and what we need in a relationship, and then be willing to do the work
Right.
to cultivate those qualities, both within ourselves
Mhm.
and with our partner.
This whole conversation is really shifting my perspective
Yeah,
because it's not about finding the right person.
right.
It's
Yeah.
about becoming the right person for the kind of relationship that we want to create.
That's such a powerful way to put it.
It is.
It really highlights the agency that we have
Mm-hmm.
in shaping our own experiences,
Yeah.
both in our relationships and in our lives as a whole.
Absolutely. And speaking of shaping our experiences, I'm curious to hear more about Drico's ideas on how we can practically apply these principles in our daily lives. Does Divine Fusion 101 offer any specific practices or exercises?
Yeah, there's one particular practice that Drico outlines that really resonated with me.
Okay.
It's called sensual meditation,
Okay.
and it's designed to help individuals connect with their root energy
Okay.
in a very tangible way.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this.
Okay, so it's a guided meditation that encourages you to focus on different areas of your body,
Okay.
bringing awareness to the sensations and energy that you feel.
So it's about really tuning into our physical sensations
Yeah.
and exploring these subtle energies that maybe we don't normally pay attention to.
Exactly. It's about cultivating this deeper awareness of our physical selves, which, according to Drico, is intimately connected to our root energy.
Does Drico specify how often we should be doing this?
Well, the materials suggest incorporating it into your routine, as often as feels good for you.
Okay.
Some people, they find it beneficial to practice daily. Others might do it a few times a week, or whenever they feel the need to reconnect with their body and their root energy.
That sounds like a practice that could be incredibly beneficial. Not just, for enhancing our intimate lives, but for improving our overall well-being.
Absolutely. And Drico emphasizes that sensual meditation can have these ripple effects throughout all areas of our lives.
Okay.
Boosting our creativity, our confidence, even our connection to our intuition.
Wow. I'm already feeling inspired to try this out.
Yeah.
But before we move on, I have to ask, what about those who might be skeptical of these concepts? People who think that finding your life's purpose through sex sounds a little, too out there,
Right.
woo-woo.
It's a valid question, and I think it's important to approach these ideas with an open mind, but also a healthy dose of critical thinking.
Right.
Drico even acknowledges that these concepts might not resonate with everyone,
Yeah.
and that's okay. you know?
Yeah.
It's not about blindly accepting everything we read or hear,
Right.
but about, exploring what feels true for us individually.
I appreciate that perspective. It's about taking what resonates and leaving the rest.
Exactly. And I think it's important to emphasize that Divine Fusion 101 is not about like imposing a specific set of beliefs or practices.
Yeah.
It's more about offering a framework,
Okay.
a different way of looking at sex and relationships,
Yes.
and then empowering individuals to find their own path within that framework.
I like that it's giving us the tools and then letting us, go on our own journey.
Exactly.
This has been a fascinating conversation so far.
Yeah.
And I'm sure our listener is eager to hear more about how Drico's teachings can be applied in everyday life.
I'm sure.
But before we dive deeper into, the practical applications of Divine Fusion 101,
Okay.
let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned so far. Okay.
Yes.
So we're back, and I got to say this deep dive into Divine Fusion 101 has really shifted my whole perspective on sex and relationships.
Yeah, it's definitely not your typical relationship advice, that's for sure.
No, not at all. And one of the things that's really stuck with me is this whole idea of root energy. It's like Drico saying, hey, this energy, it's a part of who we are, so let's not be afraid of it.
Right.
Let's explore it,
Yeah.
understand it and see how we can actually harness its potential.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a key message here.
Yeah.
It's about reclaiming this powerful energy that's often, misunderstood or even demonized.
Right, like it's taboo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Drico's work is really empowering us to see it as a source of vitality and creativity and connection.
I'm also really struck by the emphasis on personal responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Like Divine Fusion 101 doesn't give us, these quick fixes or magic formulas
No.
for finding love or happiness.
Mhm.
It's about doing the inner work.
Yes.
It's cultivating self-awareness and really taking ownership of our experiences.
Absolutely. And I think one of the key takeaways for me is that, lasting fulfillment in our relationships. It really starts with cultivating a strong connection with ourselves.
Yeah.
It's about nurturing our own root energy and becoming the best versions of ourselves.
Right. So that we can then show up
Exactly.
fully and authentically
Yes.
in our connections with others.
Yes. And that idea of becoming the right person really resonates with me. It shifts the focus from, searching for the perfect partner
Right.
to becoming the kind of partner
Yeah.
that we want to attract.
And the kind of person who can create a truly fulfilling relationship.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we have the power to shape our own experiences.
Yeah.
We're not just, passive players in this game of love. We
Yeah.
can actively cultivate the qualities, the energy, the
Right.
kind of connection that we desire.
So we talked about Drico's sensual meditation practice earlier.
Yes.
I'm curious to explore that a bit more. It sounds like a very tangible way to actually connect with our root energy and start harnessing its potential.
It is, and the beauty of it is its simplicity.
Okay.
You don't need any special equipment, any special training.
Right.
It's something you can do anytime, anywhere.
So walk us through it.
Okay, so find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down.
Okay.
Close your eyes and begin by bringing your attention to your breath. Just notice the rise and fall of your chest as you inhale and exhale.
Mm-hmm.
Once you feel settled, you can start to bring your awareness to your body,
Okay.
slowly standing from your toes to the top of your head.
Okay.
And as you move your attention through each part of your body, just notice any sensations that you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Warmth, tingling, pressure, energy. There's
Yeah.
no need to judge or analyze these sensations.
Observe.
Just observe with curiosity and acceptance.
Sounds like it encourages us to really slow down and tune in and listen to what our bodies are telling us.
Exactly. And as you become more attuned to those physical sensations,
Yeah.
you might start to notice a deeper connection to your root energy.
Oh.
That primal life force that flows through all of us.
It's like we're reawakening our senses and tapping into this source of power and potential that we've maybe, forgotten about.
Exactly. And as we cultivate this connection to our root energy, it can have these ripple effects
Yeah.
throughout all areas of our lives, influencing how we show up in our relationships, our work, even our creative pursuits.
This whole conversation has been so eye-opening.
Good.
It's like Divine Fusion 101 has given us this new language, a new lens through which to view our intimate relationships and our own personal growth.
It definitely encourages us to think outside the box
Yeah.
and challenge conventional notions of what it means to be in a relationship
Right.
and how we can use intimacy as a catalyst for transformation.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this sense of excitement and possibility.
Hmm.
It's like Divine Fusion 101 has opened up this whole new world of understanding about sex, relationships, and the power that we each hold within ourselves.
Absolutely. And to our listener,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery into the world of Divine Fusion 101.
We hope this deep dive has sparked some new insights for you,
Yes.
inspired you to explore your own root energy, and maybe even ignited a desire to view your relationships through this fresh and empowering lens.
Remember, the power to create more fulfilling relationships and a more vibrant life lies within you.
Embrace your root energy, cultivate self-awareness, and see what unfolds.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
All right, ready to dive deep today into something pretty fascinating. We're talking all about love,
Love.
but with a twist.
Okay.
This isn't just going to be your typical, hearts and flowers kind of conversation.
Right.
Our source material comes from Drico Flowers, the creator of Divine Fusion 101.
Okay.
And his take on love, well, let's just say it's pretty mind-blowing.
I am
He
intrigued.
actually suggests that love is deeply connected to evolution itself.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. We usually think of love as this purely emotional thing, like it's all about feelings.
Right.
But Drico Flowers is saying it's actually this powerful force that pushes us towards growth, towards becoming something more.
Okay, I am hooked already. So how do we even start to unpack this? Where do we begin?
Well, he starts by explaining that love operates on two levels.
Okay.
The first level is what we might call surface level love, the love we experience through understanding and compassion.
I can see that, yeah. Like when you try to see things from someone else's perspective, even if you don't agree with them. Or like when you offer support to a friend who's going through something rough.
Yeah, those are perfect examples.
Okay.
It's about connecting with others, recognizing that shared humanity we all have, and then responding with kindness and empathy.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
But how does this surface level love, how does that tie into this whole evolution thing?
That's where the second level of love comes in.
Okay.
And this is where things get really wild.
Okay.
Drico Flowers proposes that at its very core, love is actually the driving force behind evolution itself.
Whoa.
It's not just about being kind to each other. It's
Right.
about this inherent energy inside of us that's always pushing us to evolve, to grow as human beings.
Okay, hold on a second. Evolution, like Darwin and survival of the fittest and all that.
Right.
I don't know if I'm following.
It's not quite that literal. Think of it more like this underlying consciousness, an
Yeah.
energy that's always striving to expand and become more aware, more compassionate, more connected to something bigger than ourselves. It's this inherent drive within us to evolve, and I mean, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, too.
So you're talking about personal growth, like becoming better versions of ourselves.
Yes, personal growth is definitely a part of it, but what's so fascinating is that Drico Flowers doesn't specifically define what this evolution looks like in its entirety. He doesn't give us a clear end goal, and I think that's what makes it so thought-provoking.
Okay.
He leaves us with this open question. What are we actually evolving towards? What's the ultimate goal of this drive within us? It's this incredible mystery that we kind of just keep unfolding as we continue to evolve.
All right, my mind is definitely blown wide open here. So we've got these two levels of love, understanding, and compassion on the surface, and then this deep evolutionary drive at its core.
Right.
But how does he actually connect these two seemingly different ideas?
He uses this really fascinating equation. He says acceptance fueled by understanding and compassion equals love. And then on the flip side, he says the refusal to understand or have compassion, especially when faced with what he calls an evolutionary lesson, is essentially equivalent to hate.
Whoa.
Heavy stuff, right?
Yeah. Okay, let's break that down a little bit. So choosing to accept ourselves, others, even challenging situations with understanding and compassion.
Right.
That's basically an active expression of love. We're choosing to align ourselves with this force of evolution.
Exactly. It's about embracing reality, even if it's difficult, and approaching it with empathy and willingness to learn from it.
Okay.
And Drico Flowers says that's how we tap into this deeper level of love, that evolutionary energy that's pushing us towards growth.
And if we reject things, refuse to understand or have compassion, that's when we sort of veer into the territory of hate. It's like we're resisting this natural urge to evolve.
You're exactly right.
Wow.
Drico Flowers connects this concept of hate to what he calls these evolutionary lessons that life throws at us. He believes that life is always presenting us with opportunities to grow, to learn, and to evolve.
Okay.
And how we respond to those opportunities, whether it's with acceptance or rejection, shows whether we're aligning ourselves with love or with hate.
So it's not just about how we treat other people.
Right.
It's about how we approach challenges, what we choose to learn from them.
Exactly. Drico Flowers is saying even the hardest experiences, those can actually be seen as chances to evolve and express love on this much deeper level.
Wow, that's deep. That's really profound. But how does this actually help us? How does understanding love in this way actually benefit us in our day-to-day lives?
That's a great question. And it's what makes this concept so powerful.
Okay.
It's not just some abstract idea. It can really change how we live and how we interact with the world.
Okay. I'm definitely seeing that. I'm starting to see how this idea of love as evolution can shift how we look at challenges, how we approach the tough stuff in life.
Yeah.
But can you give me some concrete examples of how this actually plays out? How does this work in everyday life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the most powerful ways to use this concept is by changing how we see difficult situations. Instead of thinking of them as setbacks or things that are just frustrating,
Yeah.
we can start to see them as those evolutionary lessons, like Drico Flowers talks about, right? Opportunities for us to learn and grow.
So instead of getting caught up in like negativity or resentment,
Yeah.
we can actually use those challenges to evolve, become more resilient, more compassionate,
Right.
more aligned with that deeper level of love we've been talking about.
Exactly. It's almost like we're turning every obstacle into this stepping stone on our path of evolution.
Yeah, I like that.
And by choosing to approach those challenges with understanding and compassion, we're actively choosing love even when things are tough.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I can be honest with you, I'm still kind of wrestling with this whole acceptance equals love thing.
Sure.
Does that mean we should just accept everything that happens to us, even if it's hurtful, even if it's unjust? Like, where do we draw the line?
That's a really, really important question.
Yeah.
And it's something that Drico Flowers actually talks about in his work.
Okay.
He clarifies that acceptance, it doesn't mean just passively condoning harmful behavior or like resigning yourself to difficult situations.
Okay.
It's more about accepting that this is the reality of what is in this moment without judgment, without resistance,
Yeah.
so that you can then choose how you're going to respond from a place of love and wisdom.
So it's not about being a doormat.
No.
It's about acknowledging the situation for what it is and then making a conscious choice about how to move forward.
Exactly. It's about taking responsibility for your own growth, for your own evolution, even in the middle of difficult situations.
Right.
And remember, Drico Flowers suggests that those challenging situations, those are often the ones that have the most powerful evolutionary lessons for us.
Okay.
It's in those moments that we're really being pushed to expand our understanding, our compassion, our capacity for love.
So even when things are tough, even when we're going through something difficult, we can choose to see those experiences as opportunities.
Yes.
Opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
And we can use those experiences to fuel our own evolution.
Yes. And when you do that, you're not just enduring the hardship, you're transforming it.
Yeah.
You're transforming it into something meaningful, something that contributes to your own evolution,
Right.
and in turn to the evolution of the people around you.
I'm starting to see how powerful this perspective could be.
Yeah.
It's almost like flipping a switch in your mind.
Yeah.
Shifting from a place of fear and resistance to a place of love and acceptance.
It's a huge shift, and
Yeah.
it can really impact every part of your life. You know,
Yeah,
it can change how you relate to yourself, how you interact with others, how you handle the ups and downs that we all go through in life.
Okay, so we've talked about how this idea of love as evolution can help us approach challenges differently. But what about the flip side? What about those times when we're feeling kind of stuck or lost? Not necessarily dealing with a specific challenge, but just struggling to find our way.
Yeah.
How does this concept apply then?
That's where Draco Flower's idea of understanding our root becomes so important.
Yeah.
This underlying consciousness that's always choosing to evolve.
Right.
He says when we really connect with this deeper part of ourselves, that's when we tap into like a wellspring of self-awareness, acceptance, and even guidance.
So by understanding this core part of ourselves, this drive towards growth and evolution, we can actually get a clearer sense of who we are and what we're here to do.
Exactly. It's like peeling back all these layers of conditioning and expectations from society to discover our true essence.
Hmm.
That part of us that's always yearning to express its unique potential.
Yeah.
And by recognizing that this drive to evolve, it's already inside of us, it's inherent, that's when we can start to accept ourselves more fully, flaws and all.
So it's not about trying to become someone we're not. It's about embracing who we already are.
Yeah.
And then allowing ourselves to evolve from that place of authenticity.
You said it perfectly. And when we approach ourselves with that kind of compassion and acceptance,
Yeah.
it becomes so much easier to navigate those times when we feel lost, when we're not sure what to do. We can trust that this inherent drive towards evolution, it's always there, it's always guiding us, even when the path ahead isn't totally clear.
This is making me think about the whole concept of finding your purpose.
Yeah.
Do you think understanding this root can help us tap into that sense of purpose?
I think it's absolutely essential.
Right.
Draco Flowers suggests that when we connect with our root, we're actually aligning ourselves with our soul's journey,
Cool.
our unique contribution to the world.
Yeah.
It's not about finding this predetermined path that's already laid out for us.
Right.
It's more about uncovering and expressing those unique gifts and talents that we already have inside of us. And that expression, that contribution, that's a profound act of love.
It's like our own individual evolution is tied to the evolution of everyone else.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By expressing our unique gifts and talents, we're not just fulfilling our own potential, we're contributing to the growth and evolution of humanity as a whole.
That's such a beautiful way to put it. And it brings us back to that idea that love is this interconnected force.
Yeah.
It's constantly pushing us towards greater understanding, more compassion, and deeper connection with each other.
This is honestly blowing my mind.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
I feel like I'm seeing the world through this whole new lens now.
And that's the power of Draco Flower's work.
Yeah.
It encourages us to question what we think we know, to expand how we understand love, and to embrace this incredible journey of evolution that we're all on together.
I can't wait to hear more about how we can actually put these ideas into practice. Is there anything else Draco Flowers talks about that we can do to tap into this deeper level of love and really fuel our own evolution?
That's a perfect question to lead us into the next part of our discussion.
Okay.
We're going to explore some specific practices and tools that Draco Flowers gives us in his work.
Right, deep divers. We're about to go even deeper.
Deeper.
Stay tuned as we keep exploring this amazing connection between love and evolution. All right, deep divers. We've been on this incredible journey so far, exploring this radical idea of love as the driving force behind evolution. It's really challenged me.
Yeah.
It's really expanded how I understand what love actually means.
It is a powerful concept.
It is.
And it goes so much deeper than just like romantic love or the love we feel for our families and friends.
Yeah.
It's really about recognizing this universal energy that connects us all and drives us all towards growth, towards expansion.
Absolutely. So as we're wrapping up this deep dive, I want to bring it back to our listeners. What are some key takeaways they can walk away with today? How can they actually use this understanding of love?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is that love isn't passive. It's an active force that we can actually choose to align with.
Yeah.
By embracing the idea that challenges, those are opportunities for growth. Those evolutionary lessons that Draco Flowers keeps talking about, we can really change our perspective. And we can approach difficult situations with more courage, maybe even gratitude.
Right. It's like we're turning those stumbling blocks into stepping stones on our path.
Exactly. And by choosing to respond with understanding and compassion, even when it's really hard, we're actively choosing love.
And remembering that understanding our root, that underlying consciousness that chooses to evolve, is key.
So important.
It's about recognizing that drive towards growth that's within us
Right.
and learning to accept ourselves more fully, flaws and all.
Because those flaws, those are often just part of our unique journey of evolution. They're not something to be ashamed of or to hide. They're actually opportunities for us to learn and to grow.
Precisely. And by accepting ourselves more fully, we create space for other people to do the same.
Yes.
It's like our own personal journeys of evolution all become interconnected, and it creates this ripple effect of love and acceptance that just goes outwards.
I love that.
So it's not just about our own personal growth.
Yeah.
It's about contributing to the evolution of everybody, of humanity as a whole.
Right.
By choosing love, by embracing challenges as opportunities for growth, and by cultivating self-awareness and acceptance, we're actually playing an active role in creating a more loving and compassionate world.
That's beautifully said.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a final thought-provoking question for our listeners today.
Okay, hit us with it.
If love truly is the driving force behind evolution,
Yeah.
what evolutionary lessons are showing up in your life right now?
What challenges are you facing that could actually be these amazing invitations to grow, to expand your understanding, to deepen your capacity for love?
And how can you approach those challenges knowing that they're not roadblocks, but they're actually stepping stones on your unique path?
Your unique path of evolution. So deep divers, take this idea out into the world with you, embrace the challenges, cultivate compassion, and remember that you have the power to choose love in every single moment.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep evolving.
All right, let's dive in today. We're tackling this divine fusion idea, and we're using Draco Flower's Divine Fusion 101 as our guide.
It's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about finding that balance between those so-called masculine and feminine energies inside all of us.
Right, and supposedly that's how we can heal and become more whole.
Exactly. And what I find so fascinating about Flower's take on this is that he doesn't get all caught up in typical gender stereotypes.
Oh, so it's not about being a manly man or a girly girl.
Not at all. He's presenting these energies as like universal forces.
Okay, so like everyone's got them, no matter what.
Precisely. Regardless of your gender identity, you've got both.
I like that.
Yeah.
So if it's not about fitting into a box, then what exactly are these masculine and feminine energies? I mean, how does Divine Fusion 101 break them down?
Great question. So Flowers defines masculine energy as that driving force.
Okay.
It's action-oriented, focused on goals, on protecting your core values.
Makes sense.
And those core values he calls your root.
Hold on, root. It's
Yeah.
like family roots. What's he talking about there?
More like your foundation.
Okay,
So think your values, your beliefs, even your sense of security.
got it.
It's like the
Right.
things that truly make you you.
I like that.
And protecting your root means setting boundaries, standing up for what you believe in, and creating that safe space for yourself to grow.
So it's about taking charge, but also protecting what matters most to you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, starting to see the picture now. But what about this feminine energy? Where does that fit in?
Think of it as the receptive force.
Okay,
It's nurturing, it's about embracing vulnerability, and it's really tuning into your intuition and that deep self-connection.
so it's more about those like softer qualities.
Exactly. Self-care, emotional awareness, that kind of stuff.
So we have this dynamic duo, the driving force and the receptive force. Got it. But how does this divine fusion actually play out in real life? I mean, what does it look like?
Well, Flowers gives some really concrete examples in Divine Fusion 101.
Okay, like what?
Like, expressing masculine energy could look like taking initiative, setting boundaries, going after what you want with focus, creating structure in your life.
So being a go-getter, taking charge, making things happen.
Precisely.
Got it. And what about the feminine side? How does that show up?
It might look like prioritizing self-care, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, really nurturing yourself both emotionally and physically, and showing compassion to yourself and others.
Okay, so it's about balancing that go-getter drive with some like gentleness and self-compassion.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Now, Flowers talks a lot about mastering both these energies. Why is that so important? What's the big deal?
Because he argues that mastering both of them, finding that balance, is the key to healing and feeling whole.
Really?
Yeah, he says that when these energies are out of whack, it can cause all sorts of inner conflict and actually hold you back from growing.
Interesting. It's like trying to drive a car with two flat tires.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to get very far.
Yeah.
So, Flowers talks about healing, but what does he actually mean by that? Is he talking about fixing problems?
It's deeper than just fixing things on the surface.
Okay.
He's emphasizing that true healing comes from within, not from trying to find external fixes.
So, no amount of retail therapy or scrolling on social media is going to cut it?
He would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, that's a tough one for some people to swallow.
It is.
So if it's not about external fixes, what's the alternative? What does Flowers suggest?
He's a big advocate for what he calls going within.
Going within. What does that even mean?
It's all about taking the time to connect with your inner self, explore your emotions, and really understand the root of your challenges.
So basically, getting to know yourself, figuring out what's going on beneath the surface.
That's it.
Makes sense. It sounds like this divine fusion thing is less about fitting into some masculine or feminine mold and more about embracing, well, all of who we are.
You got it. That's a key point in Draco Flower's work.
Yeah, and that's powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
This is giving me a lot to think about already.
Right.
And we're just getting started.
There's so much more to explore. Divine Fusion 101 dives deeper into how these energies impact our relationships, our personal growth, even our spiritual journeys.
Well, we're definitely going to dive into all of that. But first, let's give our listeners a chance to process what we've covered so far. We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive into Divine Fusion.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Welcome back to our deep dive into Divine Fusion 101. Before the break, we were talking about how Draco Flowers defines these masculine and feminine energies, not as those typical gender stereotypes,
Right.
but as universal forces that we all have within us.
Exactly. And we were just starting to touch on how this divine fusion idea can really be powerful when it comes to healing and growing as a person.
Yeah.
But Flowers doesn't just focus on the individual in Divine Fusion 101. He also looks at how these energies play out in our relationships.
Now, that's something I've been wanting to get into.
Me too.
So let's talk relationships. Does Flowers give us any insights into how this divine fusion stuff can help us navigate, those sometimes tricky waters?
He does. While he doesn't really go into specific relationship dynamics, he emphasizes that this idea of balance is crucial.
Right.
If you're always coming from that driven, assertive, masculine energy in your relationships.
Yeah, I can see how that wouldn't go over too well.
Right.
Kind of like a bull in a china shop.
Exactly. And then on the other hand, if you're always in that accommodating, nurturing, feminine energy mode, maybe neglecting your own needs in the process.
You're going to end up feeling resentful and probably taken advantage of.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense.
So Flowers suggests in Divine Fusion 101 that healthy relationships actually require a balance of both energies.
Okay.
Expressing yourself authentically, but also being aware of your partner's needs.
So it's about finding that sweet spot.
Right.
And it sounds like this divine fusion can help us grow as individuals too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like we were talking earlier about how neglecting those softer, more feminine parts of ourselves can lead to burnout.
Right. And Flowers really hits on that point in Divine Fusion 101. He talks about how, we live in a society that often really overvalues that masculine energy, that constant striving, achieving, pushing forward all the time.
Always on, always hustling. I think a lot of us can relate to that.
I think so.
So how do we tap into that feminine energy more? Does Flowers offer any guidance on that?
He does. He suggests practices that help us slow down, turn inward, and nurture ourselves.
Okay, like what?
Things like spending time in nature, doing something creative, prioritizing rest and self-care.
I used to think self-care was kind of indulgent, like a luxury I didn't have time for.
Yeah.
But Divine Fusion 101 is making me rethink that a little bit.
It's a common misconception.
Is it?
Yeah. Flowers argues that self-care is actually essential for our well-being.
Really?
Yeah. And it allows us to show up more fully in other areas of our lives.
Interesting. So it's not selfish, it's self-preservation.
Exactly.
Okay, so Divine Fusion can help us with relationships, with personal growth. But what about the spiritual side of things? Does Flowers touch on that at all?
He doesn't explicitly use the word spirituality, but the whole idea of going within, of connecting with your deeper self, definitely has those kinds of implications.
It's like that journey inward is leading you to something bigger than yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that journey is very connected to their sense of purpose and meaning, to something greater than themselves.
This is really resonating with me. It's like Divine Fusion is giving us this whole new way of understanding ourselves,
Right.
our relationships, and maybe even our place in the universe.
It's a really powerful lens to look through.
It is.
And what I find so compelling about Draco Flowers' work is that it empowers us to move beyond those rigid, definitions of masculine and feminine,
Right.
and just embrace the fullness of who we are.
It's like he's saying, hey, we all have these energies inside us, so let's explore them, embrace them, and use them to live more fulfilling and authentic lives.
Yeah, that's the heart of Divine Fusion.
I like it.
And it's a journey that unfolds a little differently for everyone.
That makes sense. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly.
But I think we've given our listeners a pretty good overview of Draco Flowers' Divine Fusion 101 and the key concepts he presents.
I think so. And as we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to leave our listeners with a question to think about.
Ooh, I love those. Lay it on us.
If you could actually visualize these masculine and feminine energies within yourself, what would they look like? What unique strengths and challenges do they bring to your life?
That's a good one. Really gets you thinking.
It does.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into divine fusion. Until next time, keep exploring, keep evolving, and keep embracing that magic inside you.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been spending this episode exploring Draco Flower's Divine Fusion 101.
Yeah, some really fascinating stuff. It is. And as we've discovered, it's all about balancing those masculine and feminine energies within each of us.
Right, finding that harmony.
Exactly, to, live a more whole and healed life.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it, going through Flower's work?
It really has. And as we start to wrap things up here, I think it's important to remember this is just the beginning.
It is. Divine Fusion 101 is really just like a starting point.
So true. We've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
But what are some takeaways our listeners can walk away with today? What really stood out to you from Divine Fusion 101?
Well, I think the most important thing is that Flowers really emphasizes that these energies, the masculine and feminine, aren't tied to gender.
Right. It's not about that.
We all have both within us.
It's about recognizing and embracing those universal forces inside us, not trying to fit into some external idea of what it means to be masculine or feminine.
Exactly. And Divine Fusion 101 says that understanding and balancing these energies can really have a huge impact on our lives. We talked about how it can affect our relationships, personal growth, even our spiritual journeys.
It's like Divine Fusion gives us this whole new framework for living a more authentic life, a more fulfilling life.
Exactly. And one of the things I really like about Flower's approach is that he acknowledges that this whole journey of divine fusion is really personal.
Right, there's no one right way.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's about going within, like he says, and discovering what works for you, what that unique balance looks like for you.
So figure out your own recipe.
Yeah. Now, to leave you with a final thought from Draco Flower's work.
Okay, hit me.
He asks us to imagine a world where everyone embraces the fullness of their being, both the masculine and the feminine.
Wow, that's beautiful.
What kind of world would that be?
It's a world where, I guess, strength and vulnerability can coexist, where you can be ambitious and compassionate, driven and nurturing, all at the same time.
A world where we value and celebrate each person's unique gifts, regardless of any label.
I love that. That's a world worth striving for. And maybe, just maybe, Divine Fusion can help us get there. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Divine Fusion 101. Until next time, keep exploring, keep evolving, and keep embracing the full spectrum of your amazing self.